Welcome to Power Politics. I'm Jerónimo Cortina, a political science professor at the University of Houston.
And I'm Brandon Rottinghouse, a political science professor, also here at the University of Houston. Thanks for hanging out with us and talking politics. And it's an exciting year, and I think it's going to be another exciting year. You can tell some changes here. If you're watching this, then that means that you're actually seeing this in our faces, where we're now going to be doing this for digital media, and we're also going to be doing it on TV. So lots of big changes, right? But same old format, more or less, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the format is the same, right? We want to consolidate a lot of political information that we have over the week and present to you, right? So you can have informed conversations with your friends, with your family, with that uncle that you don't like so much. That's, the purpose of the podcast. And now we're going to be on TV, on digital as well. Yeah. So we're very excited.
I like that.
This new year.
It's good, right? Yeah. Bring facts, not opinions, right? You can merge them both, but we're going to bring at least the facts and talk about all the things that are happening. And that's the point of the show. And so obviously, even though we're literally, hours into the new year, there's still a lot going on. One big thing that happened this week was that the Supreme Court basically has agreed to hear arguments on Title 42. Title 42 sounds like a bad, alien film,
right.
But it's actually pretty important. This is a COVID era policy, basically, that is effectively used to turn away millions of migrants at the U.S. border with Mexico. This was put in place by the Trump administration. The Biden administration has sought to repeal the policy, but Republican Attorney General, including Ken Paxton of Texas, basically used the courts to try to block it. So now the high court is going to hear whether or not this is something that they're going to intervene to try to stop. So obviously, there's lots of implications to this. We've talked a lot about the border and sort of security implications as well as the political implications. So walk us through kind of what this means in terms of the big picture.
Well, this is the second time that Title 42 has been used, right? The first time it was used in 1929.
Wow, geez, the year you were born, right? Yeah.
Exactly. To enter in or to prohibit entering migrants to control a meningitis outbreak.
Yes.
Title 42 has pros and cons, right? One of the pros in terms of standard operation procedures is that border agents do not necessarily need to go through any proceedings, right? Someone enters the country without inspection, and that person is sent back immediately without anything, right? One of the cons is that migrants cannot be processed, for example, if they are requesting asylum or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's, against, I guess, some sort of our, legal standards in terms of people requesting asylum. And the other problem that it creates is that there is a lot of people entering back and forward, right? And that recidivism creates more people trying to enter over and over and over.
Yeah.
And the rate has increased. For example, in 2019, it was around 7% of migrants trying to cross again. And now it has gone up to 26%.
Wow.
And the problem is that without Title 42, people can be prosecuted, right? If you enter the second time, you get apprehended, then that has, legal implications and you can go to jail.
Yeah.
But now there's nothing happens.
Okay.
So you see that revolving door, and that's a problem.
Yeah. Are there political implications to this for the Biden administration? I mean, they fought this along with other immigration advocates who've said that this is sort of unfair and sort of outdated as a policy.
Right.
Like that, this should be a country that welcomes immigrants. Obviously, politically, it creates this tension, and certainly Republicans are against it. So one question I think is about the Biden administration's ability to be able to handle this and to be able to kind of navigate this in the context of the attempt to try to have some kind of reform of immigration laws, right? And so you're fighting multiple battles at once. And the Biden administration has been pretty good at this, right? We've talked about this last year and some of the things that they were successful at. But how you take the temperature down on immigration to be able to get the reform needed is going to be, I think, the real kind of challenge for Joe Biden in the new year, because they were close to immigration reform, right? Senator Sinema was very close to, partnering with some Republicans to try to move that needle. So that's going to be, I think, a real challenge for them, in addition to the fact that obviously you kind of, it's a kind of crapshoot when you go to the courts, right? I mean, Biden has not been that successful, and so it could be a problem for them.
And the issue here, and I think you're absolutely right, the issue is that our immigration system, our immigration policy does not work.
Yeah.
Full stop, period, end of discussion.
End of show.
So that's a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real problem.
Yeah.
And, without, or if Title 42 goes out tomorrow,
Yeah.
then the Biden administration is going to have a huge problem in their hands. Obviously, politically, it's not going to be good for the Democrats.
Yeah.
Republicans are going to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
But I guess the strategy, as you said, is we need to fix this thing one time now.
Yeah.
And the question is, if you fix it, as I say, a comprehensive immigration reform, that I
Yeah.
don't think it will have a chance,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean, there is more chances that I would run a marathon under 10 hours, right?
I have faith in you, though. I have faith in you.
than having a comprehensive immigration reform. I
Right.
think that, they have to go piece by piece
Yeah.
in order to get a coalition of both Democrats and Republicans voting for that.
Yeah, like immigration reform is like if you had like open heart surgery, whereas Title 42 is like if you took a Bayer aspirin. Right?
Exactly.
Like it's unpractical, right? And so
Exactly.
it's temporary.
Exactly.
So we'll see what the courts do, but obviously the political implications to this, both in terms of the Biden administration as well as for Ken Paxton, who continues to kind of press that federal issue against the Biden camp. I think will be telling in terms of how things go for the next 4 years. But before we leave the U.S. context and talk more about Texas and the legislative session that's upcoming, there's some chaos brewing in Washington, D.C. I
Really?
think we're breaking news on this,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Very, very new. Yeah, there's a speaker's race afoot. Kevin McCarthy, who's the presumed kind of Republican speaker, ran into some trouble. And we've reported this a couple of different ways for a few months because it was obvious that he wasn't going to quite get there. So we have a new year, but do we have a new speaker? Question mark. This is a struggle for the Republican Party.
Right.
So what's your take on kind of what's happening there in D.C.?
Well, I mean, it's very complicated for McCarthy, right?
Yeah.
Because the first thing is that Republicans have a very, very small,
Yes.
advantage, right? Or is a majority, a very
Yes.
small race.
222
Exactly.
total seats. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which complicate things dramatically for McCarthy, right?
Yes.
McCarthy has been pressured by these, ultra-conservative 5 members of the Freedom Caucus. You have Matt Gaetz, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene and associates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And frankly, they have played their cards in such a smart way,
Yeah.
right, that have put McCarthy against the wall,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And McCarthy at the beginning did not want to concede on some of the demands.
Yeah.
And one of the most important demands is that these members or any other member or
Yeah.
small coalition of members, aka these 5 members,
Yeah.
could have or would be allowed to have a snap vote at any time
Yeah.
to oust the speaker,
Yeah.
right? It's like handing the keys, right, to the
Yeah.
barbarians, right?
They can come and go as they please.
yeah,
Yeah, drink
like-
all your Dr. Pepper. And
Exactly, and then leave, and then come back and leave him back. So it's
Yeah.
it's something that he just conceded, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's
Yeah.
something very weird. And the other thing that I want to know your opinion is that what about the new members, right? New members are sworn in this week,
Yeah.
and some of them have already said like, I'm not very keen into
Right.
voting for potentially
Yeah.
Speaker McCarthy.
And some of them are smart about it. We'll talk about George Santos in a minute. He of many faces. But that's interesting because he sidled up to McCarthy because that's smart because McCarthy needs votes, right? Like you say, he can only afford to lose 4 total votes. It's going to be tight. And obviously this will happen after the time we've recorded this, but there are big implications to this, right? I mean, the Republican Party is basically playing a game of chicken with itself. And that's not ever good for a party to try to get together and govern itself. The motion to vacate, that's going to be the watchword of the week. Motion to vacate the chair is what you're talking about. That's where enough members can vote basically to say we'd like to remove the speaker. Remember, when Speaker Boehner was speaker, there was an introduction of that motion, and that was enough to have him retire. That prompted his retirement. The fact that this could actually happen, you could remove a speaker like of your own party when you've got a very slim majority is like unheard of almost, right? So we're probably going to have a big fight on this. This is the first time you've had multiple ballots in a century. And I think for the Republican Party, the problem is that it suggests how difficult it is to govern in this kind of polarized environment. Not just with the other party, but also within their own party. And the other is that it's really going to weaken the power of the speaker. I mean, I think no matter what specific rules they put into place here, some of them are just too, much into the weeds for us to really get into. But the fact is it's definitely going to create a kind of vacuum of power for the speaker. And it's going to move this to the committees and to the individual members. So the House will function more like the Senate. And you've got a lot of this kind of, I think, power structure shifted to the committees that you had, say, in the 1970s. So this is really a different kind of world that they're going to fight through.
I mean, the problem with the House is its size, right?
Yes.
And that's the whole, this is a political science word of the week. And that's a problem with collective action, right?
Yeah.
That's why the House has so many rules and the speaker is so powerful.
And it's very top down, right?
Exactly, because you have 435 different minds and different political careers that can derail every single little thing.
Yeah, simple stuff, right? Like debt ceiling, like passing a budget, right? Basic functions. So, I mean, I don't want to oversell this because
toilet
obviously
paper,
restocking,
everything.
They can't vote on the Charmin versus the cheap stuff. Like always go with the good stuff. Right?
Exactly.
But if you can't get together on this, it's going to be impossible to find some kind of consensus on big picture issues that they have to do, like financially have to do. So we'll definitely see this in the implications to this as we go through, regardless of kind of what happens. But some members are having a worse time than others, and if you can imagine, it's actually people who had a worse week than Kevin McCarthy. One of them is George Santos. Some of you may have seen this because it's been such a wild story. But this is a member-elect from New York. He basically has been accused of inventing the entirety of his personality, his biography, his Jewish ancestry, his investment banking career, property ownership, charitable contributions, even his own sexuality. So this is a strange story, right? He says that he's basically guilty of embellishing his resume.
There you go.
Opponents say you've basically invented yourself out of nothing, and it's hard to believe anything, and so you should resign. What do you take away from the implications to this, not just for like the kind of current Congress, but also generally speaking, like where we are as a country, where politically this can basically happen and people more or less get away with it?
I mean, it's generally speaking, I think that it is very, very dangerous, right? That an elected member of Congress has been exposed of all his lies, right? And has been, in addition, he has a criminal case ongoing in Brazil that just started once again because, the prosecutors over there couldn't find him. But now that he was on the news, it's like, there you are. We're restarting this thing again.
Good, right? Yeah.
So I think that, politically speaking and from the general conception, it's a very bad step, right?
Yeah.
Republican leadership should have considered them like, no, this is not going to happen. Like, you're not going to be swearing, I don't care what happens, but you're out, because you cannot lie to the voters that way. And we're entering into a phase, right, where why not? Like, you can do it. It's okay. It's fine. No, it is not fine. Period. It is not fine.
It's a good question. Actually, somebody asked me this. That was like, are politicians getting worse at lying? And I think the answer is no. I think that we're getting worse at caring about the lies.
Exactly.
And we've talked about this before, wherein, scandals don't seem to hit like they used to. And so, politicians can survive these in ways that you couldn't years ago. And so that's important. I think that, though, like the scholarship on this does suggest that there are some implications to him. And we know that, for instance, that those members who have an investigation that's sent to the House Ethics Commission generally have a reduced margin of victory by about 14%. So we know that the type of scandal matters, so corruption scandals lead to about an 8% reduction in vote shares, whereas sex and financial scandals lead to about a 5% reduction. He won by like a fairly healthy margin, right, at 54-46 in a pretty red district. So, he's safe-ish, but no politician who's faced these things is safe. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of that. But I think that the implications that we typically think of in terms of how scandals function are thrown out the window, right? We're in a new political partisan world.
No one cares, right?
And no one seems to care, And it's not clear that the Republicans are going to push back because, like we said earlier, you had Kevin McCarthy who needs every vote he can get.
Exactly, and he can become the people to vote her, right?
Yeah. That's why this matters, and that's going to be interesting for governing implications down the road.
Right.
But let's talk about Texas, because obviously there's been a lot of things happening over the break. In addition to making resolutions that I've already broken,
there you go.
There are a couple of big things that happen in investigations that are going to be upcoming. One is that the Texas governor Greg Abbott has asked the Attorney General and the head of the Texas Railroad Commission to investigate Atmos Energy, which was an energy company that is a natural gas provider. They basically failed to provide service to about 2 million customers, and the governor was not happy about it for obvious reasons. The other is that the Southwest Airlines, Dallas's own, got caught up into some serious problems trying to push tin around and get people to and from happily, without, we managed to avoid all of this.
Right.
Happily, I know you fly Southwest on occasion, but now it's going to be a federal investigation on exactly what happened and what that meant. So what do you take from these two kind of things that are swirling around the break? Is this going to affect how people perceive government? I mean, this isn't directly a government issue, but
Right.
obviously government regulates this. And so is this another example of how people are going to sort of see these changes and or see these problems and not see any changes as a result of these kinds of investigations?
Well, I think the Atmos energy investigation or potential investigation. I think it's important because you have to hold certain companies, especially when you're talking about public utilities.
Yeah,
right?
public utility. Yeah.
This is a public utility, and public utilities should be governed. Well, obviously they're governed by law, but also the government should step in when that regulation doesn't work. And the fact that a lot of people in the Dallas area lost gas pressure or this or that, I mean, that's important, right? But then again, brings us to the core of the problem. The core of the problem is our energy infrastructure.
Yes.
Is it up to par or not?
Yeah.
And regulators, state legislators, the governor, et cetera, need to pay attention to the core of the problem, right? And try to fix it. And on the Southwest, I mean, it was a disaster, right? 71% of Southwest flights were canceled, right?
That's a lot.
That's a lot of flights and a lot of customers that were extremely mad.
Yeah,
right?
even more mad than usual, right? When you're flying during the holidays.
Right, and it's not like the movie. What was Plane, Trains, and Automobiles?
Yeah, that was a great one.
But I mean, people were gonna be, very mad. And the fact of the problem is that Southwest did not know right where the pilots were, where the flight attendants and the crew were, because they were using a 1990s scheduling system, right? Probably like pen and paper or something like that.
It's like a little push card.
Exactly. And that created a whole problem. And I think that now that the Secretary of Transportation and all the other regulators are going to look into it, is like, hey, we are now in the 21st century. You need to have that technology. You need to. I mean, there's an app for everything, right? Like, have an app for these things.
Make it work, right? Yeah. No amount of free peanuts is going to make this better, but it seems like they've kind of tried to.
I don't know.
Oh, you're happy with that?
I can be persuaded.
A peanut and a Diet Coke, and you're set. You're all's forgiven.
Yeah, not pretzels. The little pretzels.
No, that's not good.
I don't like them.
You like the peanut. That's old school. I appreciate that. Yeah. I think too. I mean, in particular, the Southwest Airlines thing was so strange. Obviously, they'll get to the bottom of some of that, but I think that the energy regulation issue is the most interesting to me, because Greg Abbott has definitely got to keep his finger on the pulse of the public when it comes to how the energy infrastructure and the grid holds up. And he's got to be able to, I think, kind of shift blame around, right? Because people are going to look at him and say, when the power goes off, it's Greg Abbott's fault. And if he's going to own that issue, he needs to make sure that, all these companies are in line and the grid is going to hold. So basically that's what he's doing here. I mean, there's nothing you can do to change it, now, but certainly the investigation is going to give him some leverage to say, like, we're doing everything we can, kind of full court press style. So that's certainly going to be of interest. But obviously he is going to have his hands full with the legislative session, which is upcoming. For those people who are new to Texas, Texas has a biennial legislature, so we meet once every 2 years for 140 days. Some people say that they should meet once every 140 years for 2 days, but this is definitely something we're going to live with. The legislature is always cause for a bunch of fun. There's a lot of things happening in terms of the dynamics. What are some kind of highlights that you expect to see in terms of like just the political kind of dynamics of the next session?
Well, obviously there a lot of very important issues,
Yeah.
right? And these issues are public policy issues,
Yes.
right? We're not talking about
Yeah.
different type of issues,
Right,
right?
right.
These are the issues that legislators and the government should focus. And some of those issues obviously are the power grid, right? We have seen some tension between Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Governor Abbott in terms of, do we need to spend more time on these, or is it fixed or not? But I
Yeah.
think that, as you said, Governor Abbott is like stepping on and saying like, like you have to deliver,
No-
right?
no
And if
pause,
you're not
yeah.
going to deliver as a company, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have some consequence, and that's going to be very important. Obviously, we're going to have, as usual, border security, law enforcement issues, and education, and obviously election integrity, and how to divide, right? 27 billion cash
Ooh.
surplus that the controller Hager is going to talk about a couple of days from now.
I'll take half and I'll invest it wisely. I promise to do a good job. Like
I don't need half.
1%, I'll take.
Yeah, and I will be more than happy, right?
Right.
But there's obviously
Yeah.
some complications in how much money they
Yeah.
can spend, right?
Yes. Yeah, there are limits legally to how much money they can spend. And actually, they still have to kind of maneuver around some of those laws and take some tough votes potentially to kind of break the cap to be able to spend it all. But I feel like it's a better session. I mean, sessions that the states flush economically are always much calmer and much happier. So I think that that's going to be the kind of hallmark of the session. I don't think it'll be the case that they're going to get along by any means, because obviously partisanship has reached this kind of epic point. But I do think the Texans are going to probably need some toothpicks to pick all of the red meat out of their teeth because it's going to be a red meat session, at least in part. But I think a lot of that's going to be governed by the dynamic between the leaders, right? So a couple different things are worth noting. First is that since the 84th legislature, which is the first legislature that Greg Abbott was governed over, you've got 125 new members of the House and 25 new members of the Senate. That's almost an entire legislature full of new members who were
Right.
like within 4 or
right.
5 years and a couple of sessions old. So there's a lot of authority. So when people ask me like why the governor's got this much power, I mean, there are all these reasons why, but one of them is that he basically is able to reshape the Republican Party in a way that he likes. So you've got obviously that dynamic in play. The other is that you're going to have, I think, a House versus Senate dynamic, right? You've got Speaker Phelan, who is, I think, like kind of gaining the respect of the members. I mean, he's a new speaker, relatively speaking, but I think he's spent a lot of money to try to get people elected. And so I think he's in good shape there in terms of getting the respect of the members. Dan Patrick on the other wing of the Capitol, though, is obviously runs the Senate like with an iron fist. And he's the most powerful lieutenant governor we've had. And there's going to be a lot of, I think, headbutting here when it comes to that. So we'll see how far they want to go, right? Like, definitely Dan Patrick has priorities that the House doesn't have, including school vouchers. So I want to ask you about this, right? This is a big factor because so much of what the kind of Republican Party's been fighting about internally has been about how to fund public schools. So basically vouchers are a way that, you can use some of the public money to apply to a private school. So basically, and some are saying that like your money follows the kid, right? So you've got a kid, they're going to give you X dollars. If you want to, you can apply that money to like a savings account or to, go to private school tuition. Rural Republicans say it's a non-starter. Our public schools are critical. And in any case, there aren't enough of these private schools to go to. Dan Patrick and advocates are saying that, it's more fair system and, it allows for there to be solutions to failing schools. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's a very complicated issue for Republicans, right? Because as the state has changed demographically, right, in the big Texas triangle, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston metro area, right? Those areas have become, bastion for Democrats.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Republicans, right, are getting most of their support in these rural areas.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And population growth in those rural areas is not as high as the one that we're seeing, especially in these big urban cores.
Yeah.
So rural areas, as you rightly said, is like they don't have the school for little children, private school, incorporated AC, right?
Yeah.
They have a public school.
Yeah. That's
period.
where, that's
And,
the lifeblood of
exactly.
your community.
And you have elementary, middle school, high school, end of story.
Yeah.
So if these schools get less money, right, they're gonna be hurting.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they're gonna navigate that because their core constituencies are like, this is a no-go.
Yeah.
We don't want it.
I think so too. And I think they're going to run into problems too with some bills we're talking about that are going to affect transgender kids. There's been some proposals to basically ban that kind of therapy. So that'll be a big fight that for sure they're going to have. The use and teaching of race in classrooms is going to be another one too. Exactly how they hone that from what they passed last session is going to be a big part too. So that's going to be another kind of factor. There are a lot of these bills, I think, that are going to be a challenge for the House to get through. The good news is that there are lots of other stuff they can fight about, stuff that people are worried about financially. And I think that can take some priority. So my guess is you're still going to see these bills, but I'm just not sure how far they're going to get. But I did have a question about Democratic committee chairs, right? This has been a kind of real situation from where the right has challenged the middle of the Republican pack to say, you're doing this too many. So what's the over-under on, say, 10 Democratic committee chairs? You take the over or you take the under?
I never understand those.
You think it's going to be more than 10 or less
no,
than 10?
No, less than 10.
Okay, less than 10. Okay. Well, we've got a speaker's race in Texas, too. That'll be interesting. Obviously, that'll show some of those dynamics, too, and it's going to be pretty fun to watch. So they gavel in this week, and we're going to find out more about what goes on.
Yep, and we'll keep you all informed next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Jerónimo Cortina.
And I'm Brandon Rottinghouse. We'll see you next week.